My name is Charles Wallace-Thomas IV, and I'm an Energy and Economic Justice Policy Fellow in the newly named, or newly renamed, I should say, Office of Energy, Justice, and Equity. Before we begin, and you'll see the little red box, we were previously the Office of Economic Impact and Diversity, but that was a 40-year-old name, and so now we've revamped it and we've changed it. But before we begin, I want to thank EOPA and OSDBU, as well as Deputy Secretary Turk, for the invitation to speak here today. And I'd like to share a little bit of a personal narrative, if you will. I'm lucky enough to count among the constellation of my forefathers veterans of several branches of this nation's armed forces. One of these, my grandfather, characterized his mission in life as trying to take his effort, all of his efforts, the sum total of his life force, and pull and push against a lever to try to get it to move down one click, just one, over the course of his lifetime, such that his family could live a better life and he could leave the world a little bit better than he found it. Perhaps as elected officials and small business owners and community leaders, you resonate with this sort of interminable struggle to just move things by one click in the amount of time that we have. And indeed, through his service and his sacrifice as a veteran, and then afterwards in public service in the city of San Francisco, he achieved this mission. And I think it resonates a little bit with the great mission that we have here today, which is not only to achieve American energy independence, sustainability, and renewable and resiliency, rather, in our energy systems, but to leverage the historic levels of federal funding that have been made available by Congress and that are being marshaled through the executive agencies to build a clean energy economy made in the very image of equity and justice. So I mentioned our office was renamed. That's what our office is all about. We're about helping to make sure that equity and justice are at the core of the way that we're implementing DOE funds. So we can go to the next slide, please. Wonderful. Okay, I thought it might make sense to take a big step back. We're here at the Department of Energy. The Department of Energy is massive. That's our organization chart. Some fast facts that we won't go into all of them. We were allocated $161.29 billion to help make sure that this energy transition happens. We support over 25,000 researchers. We have 14,000 employees across 17 national labs, and we have over 95,000 management and operating contractors who are responsible for helping us to achieve this mission. So it's a truly massive undertaking that we are trying to complete. We can go to the next slide, please. Our little office, the Office of Energy, Justice, and Equity, is this small blue square on this chart. A lot of the folks that you heard from today, including the Office of State and Community Energy Programs, OSDBU, and LPO, fall under these programmatic offices here, which is where you'll find most of the funding dollars that are available to you as small business owners, or that you might be able to use to leverage in achieving your own missions. Next slide, please. So the mission of the Office of Energy, Justice, and Equity is to ensure that as these offices design their programming, they design it in a way that accounts for disadvantaged communities' needs and creates pathways for them to engage in funding opportunities that they may have been previously excluded from just through the very bureaucratic nature of our processes, or just simply not knowing that these opportunities existed. Next slide, please. So this is our team. Our wonderful leader, Shalea Morissette, who is the chief of our division, is not on this screen, but I put this in our presentation just to demonstrate how committed we are to making sure that you all know exactly what's available, how to access it, and by what time. We visited 23 states over the past 10 months or so across the 10 members of our team. We've been everywhere from Alaska to Miami to make sure that you understand that this is an opportunity that is worth taking now. It's not something that we can afford to not have leveraged when it's all said and done. We can go to the next slide, please. Holding to the next slide. So part of our mission has been to ensure that we open our doors so that you can ask us questions and make sure that you get your questions answered and that you get meaningful and tangible information in real time. Part of our efforts have been to establish an Ask Us Anything series. This is like an monthly open office hours series every third Wednesday, and we featured LPO, we featured other folks, other program offices, to make sure that you can contact them directly and get your questions answered. So I encourage you all to leverage these slides once they're distributed to you to make sure that you join us for one of our Ask Us Anything series. We've done 9 so far this year. We're going to do 11 next year. They're already getting scheduled. So please do leverage that resource. And we can go to the next slide, please. And can you just raise your hands quickly if you all have heard of Justice 40 or understand what it is? Understand, let's say understand first. That's an important distinction. Okay, and heard generally. Okay, good. So it seems like most of us are pretty familiar, but and Jay, you alluded to this earlier in your presentation, but I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page. Justice 40 came out of an executive order 14008 established by President Biden to ensure that 40% of the benefits of certain federal investments in things like clean energy transition and clean energy transition technologies are experienced by disadvantaged communities. Next slide, please. Some of the work that we did initially in this office was to identify which of DOE's programs were covered by Justice 40. We found that 144 of our programs were covered by Justice 40. So that's most of DOE. We can go to the next slide, please. We also initially did some work to understand exactly where disadvantaged communities were, to define what a disadvantaged community was. And a lot of that work was then taken and progressed by the Council on Environmental Quality out of the White House. And they created a tool called CJUST, the Climate and Environmental Justice Screening Tool. So when you're applying for a funding opportunity announcement, or you're thinking about how you should search for contracts or preempt where contracts are being awarded, I encourage you to look at the CJUST map and understand that this is the map that we, and indeed all of the other federal agencies, are using, the map on the right-hand side, that is, to locate our investments. These are the disadvantaged communities, and you can type in zip codes, you can type in addresses to figure out whether or not the community that you are a part of is considered a disadvantaged community, and by what metrics you're considered a disadvantaged community. There are 36 different metrics that account for disadvantage, and so I highly encourage you all to leverage that resource as you're either filling out your applications or trying to understand where DOE is going to be making its investments. Next slide, please. And we can actually skip this slide. And I just wanted very briefly, I only have a couple of minutes left, but there are a few different types of DOE funding. We've mentioned funding opportunity announcements, we mentioned loan guarantees, but there are also grants through the SBIR and STTR programs, and there are also prizes, which have lower dollar amounts, but are significantly more accessible to you. And if we can go to the next slide, the reason that it's important to understand these distinctions is because the application loads are a little bit less for some of them. So as small business owners, your time is precious, of course. So I would encourage you, in addition to looking into procurement opportunities, also look into some of our prizes through the American Made Challenges, which have programmatic areas that I think are very relevant to a lot of the work that you all may be doing. And within our office specifically, I wanted to take a minute to talk about a very specific tax incentive that is being used to incentivize us to develop community energy, or community-owned energy infrastructures in disadvantaged communities across the country. If we could advance the slides, please. No, actually advance the slide again, once more. Holding. So 48E is the Low-Income Communities Bonus Credit Program. This program is being administered by our office to ensure that federal investments are being leveraged and multiplied across 4 different areas. So the 48E investment tax credit is a 30% tax credit that is applied to community solar or wind developments in general. This low-income bonus credit program is intended to benefit projects that are less than 5 megawatts that are occurring in low-income community census tracts located on Indian land, located in low-income residential buildings, or are in economic benefit projects, such that this credit is stackable with other grants that you may receive from DOE and can be an up to 50% federal tax credit for your project. So I encourage you to visit this link, find it on our website. The applications are live or will be live very soon, and this is a program that we'll have for the next 10 years, so it has the potential to really make some positive change. And we can advance the slides through to the end, actually. I won't spend too much time on community benefits because our dear friend JPEG highlighted those very beautifully. But community benefits are something that I will note very briefly. All program offices who are administering funding opportunity announcements must use. So not only LPO. And these are incredibly important because they account for 20%, up to 20% of the score for applicants submitting for funding opportunity announcements, which means that any application which hopes to be competitive is going to need to take seriously the criteria that we've set forth in community benefits planning. And so this is really important, and I think it's an important thing to note so that as you're looking for businesses who may have been awarded DOE money that you want to procure from, understand that they have a community benefits plan. So ask them what their plan is, ask them how you can help them fulfill it, how you can be built into their pipeline. And that is my time, everyone. My name is Charles Wallace-Thomas IV. Please feel free to reach me at my email here or reach us in the Office of Energy, Justice, and Equity, or generally. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.